think this guy is finally ready. So of course, we talked about the negation. We talked about the and the or connector, if we use those to connect propositions and, make basically compound statements. So remember what we had talked about in terms of the and, both parts, right, of your statement should be true for the compound statement to be true. And then with the or, we had talked about as long as one of those parts is true, then the compound statement is going to be true. And of course, we had seen examples for that. And then we came to the if then or the conditional statements, which also kind of helps us create that compound statement. And this was the one where you had to look at 4 different cases of when a statement would be true or false. So the only time the compound statement with the if then fails or is a false statement is when your proposition is true, but your conclusion is incorrect, right? Or where the premise is true, but the conclusion is false. And that's the only time that your compound statement will end up being false. But you can see in all other cases, it ends up being true, right? So if both parts are true, your compound statement is true. If both parts are false, your compound statement is still true because you technically haven't failed the premise, right? So if you didn't meet the premise, you didn't meet the conclusion, that's okay. The other one was the premise can be false, but if the conclusion is still met, if the conclusion is still true, your compound statement, the if-then statement will still be true. So that's kind of what we have looked at last time. Now here we're talking about evaluating these compound statements. So that can be with the if-then connectors, with the and the or connector as well. So let's take a look at this example over here, number 10. And bigger, so let's see that better. All right, so they're saying determine which set of qualifications meet the requirement. To apply for this job, applicants must have a bachelor's degree, an associate's degree, and 3 years of relevant experience, or a high school diploma or GED, and 6 years of relevant experience. So first, I want you to break down where you see the ands and the ors as the connectors. Are we seeing a statement which is a conditional statement? So like the if-then conditional statement. So read that again in your mind and see what is the setup of this statement that they're asking us, to determine the set of qualifications for. You guys in the back can see that? You want me to make it bigger? Yeah, good. Or you can open it up on your device if you want to get into the textbook and open it up. So what would you say is the construction of this? Is this a conditional statement, an if-then statement, or not? I mean, you're not seeing the words if-then, but don't let that throw you off. Are we seeing a premise and a conclusion? Yeah, Samuel, what do you see?
If you have all of that stuff, you can apply for the job.
Very nice. So there's an implied conditional statement in there because they are saying you have to meet, whatever these requirements are to be able to apply for the job, right? So they're saying if you have the bachelor's, the GED, blah, 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 then you can apply. So yes, there is an implied if-then statement in here. And then of course you will see there are the connectors and or also being used, right? Okay, so keeping that in mind, let's talk about part A. Lisa, okay, I'll go with you. Has a bachelor's degree and 2 years of relevant experience. So is this person eligible to apply for this job or not? No, why not?
It's a bachelor's degree and 3 years.
So we're missing 1 year of experience there, okay? And an associate, okay? Jordan has a high school diploma and 3 years of relevant experience. Can they apply? No, because they're missing the 6-year mark, right? It should be double that. Ian? I mean, in British English, we say proper nouns can be pronounced anyhow, so I'm going with that. So if you do not like my pronunciation, I do apologize. But we'll go with Ian. Has an associate's degree and 6 years of relevant experience. associates and 6 years. So can they apply? Yeah, okay. So we said no on the first two, yes on the third one. Okay, yes.
It says it doesn't give time on the bachelor's degree. So the first one probably could apply.
So you're thinking the first one could apply?
They say you need 3 years of relevant experience.
Because
No,
there's the,
bachelor's degree, that's what the associates.
since there's the and, right?
Yeah.
So are you thinking associates and 3 years, but bachelor's on its own? Okay, all right, I can see that, because like you said, the comma is kind of separating that argument, okay? So based on that, you're saying as long as they just have bachelor's degree, no work experience, they are still okay to apply. Okay, I can go with that argument. Do you guys see that? Anybody who does not? Okay, so what they're saying is, let's do some, right. Okay, so the arguments here are, or the requirements maybe, you have to have a bachelor's degree, right? So that's one argument. Or you can have an associate's degree with 3 years of experience, right? Because that's lower than a bachelor, so you only have 2 years of schooling, but then that adds with the work experience, right? Or you can have a high school diploma or a GED with 6 years of experience, right? Because that and is where we're saying both parts have to be true. And we'll actually get into symbols because you can see that's coming down next. So sometimes what it happens is it kind of helps symbolize some of these statements. So actually what's happening, bachelor's degree is definitely by itself. The associate goes with the work experience. And it can be either high school diploma or GED because we know they're equivalent. That combined with 6 years, right? So you're kind of grouping those arguments together. So yes, like Raven said, since Lissa has a bachelor's degree, technically they should be able to apply for this job, right? Because they're meeting that first argument. However, with Jordan, they have high school diploma, but instead of 6 years, they only had 3 years of experience. So that's kind of where they are lacking in those years of experience. So they are a no. AN is associate's degree with 6 years. So what did we say for AN? He only needs 3 years, or they, I guess, I'm not sure if AN is, I mean, who uses AN? Sylvia has a GED and 6 years of experience. GED with 6 years, so can they apply? Yeah? So is Jordan the only person who was not eligible? Okay, let's check. Let's come down here. Right? Good job, guys. Very nice. So you can see there are many combinations that work here. Lissa, Ann, and Sylvia all meet the requirements or go beyond. Jordan does not have enough years of experience with that high school diploma. All righty, wonderful. Everybody okay on this? All right. So like I said, sometimes it kind of actually helps to have symbolism instead of looking at words. And of course, it then kind of helps us look at some of like these longer sentences like we saw and break it down into symbols. So then, we're just kind of like, okay, we're just trying to figure out the logic behind it, right? Because then you don't get lost so much in grammar or English. And it actually simplifies, in my opinion, the study of logic when you're just looking at them as symbols instead of like these big, long sentences. So some symbols here, when we're using the connector and. There we go. So with the connector and, you actually use what we call as the caret symbol. So it kind of looks like an A, right? Without the horizontal line in between. So that's kind of the easiest way to know. And has that caret symbol. With the connector or, we're of course inverting the caret symbol. I don't know if it has a name or not, but just to be silly, I call it peas because you've got carrots and peas. That's how I remember it. But remember, you're basically turning the caret symbol upside down and making that symbol for the or. So it basically looks like a V, but it's really not a V. When we're doing negations, when we say, what is today? Today is Tuesday, and we can say today is not Tuesday. So when we're negating it, you actually use the tilde symbol. So this is normally the tilde symbol, but every now and then you'll see textbooks using this other negation. But yeah, usually we just use the tilde for not A. And then the last one for if then, because it's a conditional, right? We're saying you have to meet the premise to get to the conclusion. You see that arrow pointed in one direction. And so you have the A going towards B. Now, for some reason, and I don't know why, the textbook doesn't talk about the fourth connector here, which is a biconditional statement. So you have conditional statement, right, which is in one direction. Biconditional, by the name of it, should tell you can go in either way. And the connecting words for that is if and only if. And the symbol for that is actually a double-headed arrow. So that means you can go in either way. And I'll actually show you an example of that. You know, you just save this game since your textbook does not have this symbol. So yeah, this one is just kind of talking about the prefix bi when we're talking about bicycle, binomial, or bilingual. So basically that stands for two, right? So we're saying bicycle, of course, has two wheels. Binomial, of course, has two terms, and then bilingual, of course, means you can speak in two different languages. So in this case, if you look at this bottom paragraph here, is talking about if I am rich, then I am happy, and if I am happy, then I am rich. So you can see we took the same two sentences, right? And we transposed it with the if then, and then we kind of switched it with the if then. So we're saying if I am rich, then I am happy, right? So I am rich and I am happy are basically the two singular arguments. And then you switch them and you're saying, if I am happy, then I am rich. Now, of course, the validity of the statement may be true or false, right? Because obviously we cannot really say one leads to the other leads to the first one, but that's something we'll worry about later. So you will actually see the two if-then statements have been connected by using the word and. So you will see we're saying if I am rich, then I am happy, right? So if we say this is going in this direction, A going towards B, then we're using the symbol, the word and as a connector. So we're basically saying these two arguments are connected together with if I am happy, then I am rich. So if I am happy, then I am rich. So this is kind of what a biconditional would look like if we didn't use the double-headed arrow. But if you use the double-headed arrow, then you can just do that and you don't have to write out that big, long sentence. So in this case, what you can basically say is, well, let's see if your book actually talks about this, okay? So in terms of the if and only if statements, that would be if I am rich, no, if and only if I am rich, then I am happy, is what it would sound like in English. So that's your biconditional with the double-headed arrow. Sometimes to shorten up that if and only if, instead of writing out that whole if and only if, you can actually use the word if with two F's, which also symbolizes the double condition, the biconditional statement over here. But like I said, broken down, this is what that statement would end up looking like. So let's take a look at this example 6 over here. Oh, and there's actually in English, there's multiple different ways that you can write the if and only if statements. Of course, we have the most common one, but you will also see we can use the terms necessary and sufficient when we're describing these biconditional statements. So we can say P is sufficient for Q, which is the same thing as our biconditional. Oh, no, sorry, not biconditional. One direction. P implies Q, and then we can say, P is necessary for Q, so this other one over here actually goes in the opposite direction. Q implies P, so when you're doing the biconditional, you actually would say P is necessary and sufficient for Q. So the necessary and sufficient are actually also used just for conditional statements, but together, like you see in that last part, is necessary and sufficient for, can be used for the biconditionals. You're putting both words together in there. And examples of that will show up in your homework assignments. I do want you to be at least familiar with the terminology. All right, let's take a look at this guy. So they're saying express the biconditional as a conjunction of two conditionals. So they're asking us to break it into if then and if then statements, right? So kind of spread it out. So the statement is a citizen is eligible to vote if and only if the citizen is at least 18 years old. So let's identify the single arguments themselves, like the statement, just what A would stand for, what B would stand for. So what are, without the if and only if, what would those individual arguments look like? A citizen is eligible to vote if and only if the citizen is at least 18 years old. But I think there's a bill coming out where some high school students were like, we should be eligible to vote at 17 instead of 18. It did not make it last year through the Colorado, legislature, but I think they're trying again this year. So while you're thinking on that, what are your two individual arguments here? Like we had the I am rich, I am happy. So what are those two individual statements in this guy here? You want me to start pointing fingers at you, or somebody wants to volunteer? Yes.
A citizen is eligible to vote if they're 18 years old. And then if a citizen is 18 years old, they're eligible to vote.
So you should not have overlap between the two sentences. So you're almost there. So just think about how we can kind of separate those, right? Anybody else want to give it a try? Yes, Dominic?
A citizen is eligible to vote, and then a citizen is 18.
At least 18. Yeah, very good. Yeah, so you're actually taking it apart like it's written down for us. Very nice. So yeah, so a citizen is eligible to vote. We can call that A or B, or P and Q. So whatever letters you want to go with. I think your textbook leans a bit on P and Q. So that would be one statement. And then we can say the citizen is at least 18 years old, could be the other. Okay, so now how would we write it out in two conditional statements using the word and? So, basically A implies B and B implies A. So how would you write this with if then statements using those A and B arguments? You can kind of see that in here, right? Because we've got, so we use a citizen is eligible to vote as our first argument. So you can say if a citizen is eligible to vote, right? So that's the if part. Then the citizen is at least 18 years old, right? So which we know is what the current law is, right? You have to be a minimum of 18 years old on the day of election day, right? November 5th, I think this year. So yeah, we know that argument works out well. And now we're switching that order. We're saying if a citizen at least 18 years old, then the citizen is eligible to vote, right? So you can see how this arguments work in both ways. So as you can imagine, biconditional statements, now you can take any two and put them in the format, but the validity is where it would come down to, is it true or not? Does it make sense for it to go in both directions? And you can kind of see how that biconditional statement works out here. And then we'll get into truth tables. We haven't talked about truth tables yet, so I don't want to jump into that before we talk about something else. But at least kind of, are we seeing how a biconditional statement is set up going in both directions? Anybody have questions at this point? No? Okay. Alrighty, I will go ahead. Figure this out. Let's come back to our textbook here. Alrighty, so here we are talking about the logical equivalence. So we're saying and or statements can have their propositions reversed without affecting the truth value of the statement. Because again, remember, for the and, both parts have to be true for the entire compound statement to be true. For the or, one of them has to be true for the entire compound statement to be true. So it really wouldn't matter if you switch the order around, right? However you write it in English, without affecting the truth value. Now, if you buy bacon and eggs, it's the same thing as buying eggs and bacon, right? Because again, that switching of the order is kind of what they're pointing at here. The order does matter, however, when you're doing a conditional statement, right? Because one is the premise, the other one is the conclusion. So if you switch the order on those, then it may not be true anymore. So in the conditional statement, the if-then statement, the order is very important, which, as you can imagine, in a biconditional, since it works in both directions, switching that order would not actually affect the truth value, but conditional, just one direction, if then, will make a difference on the truth value. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. So sometimes during an argument, an if then statement will be reversed or combined with not, the negation, in different ways. So there are names for these combinations, and that's kind of what we're looking at here. And it is helpful to look at which statements would be equivalent to each other. Now, when we're talking about equivalent here, guys, we're talking about sharing the same truth value. So they have to both be true, even if you rearrange them, put a negation in there, or whatever changes we make, right? So that's what we're looking at here. So you have your original conditional statement, that would be the if then. And just to kind of, again, work with symbols, so you guys can kind of start getting used to them. This is the order. We're saying P is the premise, Q is the conclusion, right? So if the P thing happens, then the Q conclusion will happen. You have converse, and you will see in this case, we're actually switching the order because now we're bringing the Q part to the front. So the Q is now becoming your premise and the P is becoming the conclusion. So the direction has changed. Inverse is, you can see, with negation. So we are actually saying if is still the first part, but now we're saying, and I'll stretch it out here so everything's not jumbled. So we're saying not P, which means you're negating the P, but we're still going in that same direction as the original statement, but now you are negating the Q also, right? Because we're saying if not P, then not Q. So you're negating both P and Q. And then the last one is the contrapositive, where you will see it's the Q in the front, but it's being negated also, right? The not Q, then not P. So this guy would be not Q implies not P. Are we kind of okay with the symbols here? Yeah, okay. So let's take this guy down to this example here. So you can kind of see where the equivalence lies, but let's kind of use that with our example over here. Don't want to get rid of my symbol, so I know it's kind of covering up that box, but I'll fix it. All right, let's look at this guy here. Assume this original statement is true. If you take your dog to the park, they will be happy. Okay? Can we identify what the P and the Q are here? The individual statements?
If you take your dog to the park, and then they will be happy.
Right, so just leave the if part out because that's part of the conditional. But yeah, just P by itself or A, B, whatever I guess your book is using. You take your dog to the park, we'll call that as P, and then they will be happy, or the dogs will be happy, will become your Q. So your original statement, of course, you can see if you take your dog to the park is the premise, and then the conclusion is the dogs will be happy, right? They will be happy, that's the Q. So that's the original statement. So they're asking us to write the converse, inverse, and contrapositive, and then determine which two would be equivalent, and you can kind of see the equivalence at the bottom, but let's start out by writing these out. Down here for now, so we have some space to write. Okay, so we'll do the converse, which in symbols, remember, is Q implies P. So how would you write that out in words for the converse, where we switch the order and bring Q to the front and P to the back? Megan? I can kind of see you speaking out. Yeah, so you're bringing if, and since we're talking about the dogs here, we'll actually use the word the dogs instead of they, so we know what we're talking about. So if the dogs are happy, that becomes my Q in the front. Then you took them, or him, her, I don't know, took them. Well, it says park, not pork. Alrighty, so that was converse, right? Just switching the Q and the P. All right, let's try inverse. Since I'm kind of writing on top of each other, I'll change my color here. So remember, inverse was not P implies not Q. So you're keeping the same order as the original, right? We're just negating it. So again, how would you write that out in English?
Your dog's not happy, you won't take him to the park.
Keeping the original statement is what you're negating. So you're not switching the Q and the P like we did for converse. You're taking the original and you're just, because remember, it's if P in the beginning and not Q. Sorry, if not P, then not Q is what your inverse will be. So what was our P statement here? So how would we negate that? Yeah, very good. If you do not. And you're negating both sides, right? So then again, you will say then, they will not be housed. So negating both, but keeping the original P implies. Sorry. Okay, so that brings us to the last one, contrapositive, which is this guy here. And for contrapositive, you go back to switching the order and then you're negating both sides. So this will come out to be not Q in the front. So what will that look like if you're bringing not Q in the front part? Yeah, there you go. Very good. If not happy, then I guess you did not take your dog to the park. So out of, and I know it's like a jumbled holy mess in there. Which two do you think in truth sense are equivalent between the original statement, the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive? Now, I know you can kind of see the box at the bottom, which tells you which two are equivalent, but between our statements, which ones do you think, do they actually make sense that they are kind of talking about the same thing? Because, you know, we're talking about the original statement, the conditional statement we started out with being true with the very last one, which was the contrapositive. So if the original statement was, if you take your dog to the park, they will be happy, right? So the condition is take them to the park. The result is they're happy. Contrapositive, which is that green one that we wrote at the end, says, if the dog is not happy, then you did not take them to the park, right? So we're basically saying the dog's happiness kind of is tied to the dog being at the park, right? So if you did not take them to the park, well, they are not happy because you did not take them to the park, right? So we're saying the original statement that was in the example and the contrapositive, the writing in green, are the two equivalent statements, right? They will have the same truth value. So if they're both, original is false, contrapositive will be false. If original is true, contrapositive will be true. Then we are saying the converse and inverse are equivalent. So same thing, they share the same truth value. So those were the pink and the blue. So we're saying if the dogs are happy, then you took them to the park. So we're saying basically that happiness again is based on the dog being at the park. The inverse said, if you do not take your dog to the park, then they are not going to be happy, right? So again, we're kind of talking about the same thing, but it's just about how you're writing it, the order of your P and Q statements, and where you put the negations. And so the best thing to remember is the verses go together, right? So converse, inverse, they're both ending in verse. They are equivalent to each other. And then of course, the original conditional statement goes with the contrapositive. So if you can just remember that the verses are equivalent, then you'll know the other two go together. Alrighty, you know what? Let's save this mess. So basically, what I am saying, if we go back here. What happened? There we go. So these two are equivalent, yeah? And then these two are equivalent. Any questions on these equivalences? No? You know what, let's do an example each from this just as a quick review here. So let's do number 2. How far? Is that a proposition? And let's see if you guys remember what a proposition is. How far? Can we classify that as a proposition? And if not, just scroll up to the top of the page and you'll see the definition for propositions. Why not?
Question?
Very good. And what did we say about propositions? What was that one condition about propositions? Okay, but I was looking for something else. Cannot be questions, that's good. Well, statement becomes a little ambiguous because I love cupcakes is a statement, right?
That's not
It's
true or
better.
false.
Samuel, can you say that louder?
It has to be true or false.
Very good. We should be able to assign a truth value to it. So either it's false or true. Now, when I say I love cupcakes or I like cupcakes, that's my opinion, right? You can say, cupcakes, who cares? Right? So opinions, questions would not really classify as propositions. Portland is not in Oregon. Again, we're just talking about, can you assign it a truth or false, right? So is it a proposition? Part B. Yeah, I mean, we know it's a false statement because Portland is in Oregon, right? So yes, you can assign up true or false to it. Portland Community College. No, because what? There's not even a sentence there, really. It's 3 words put together. It is raining. Yeah, because we can assign a true or false value to it. Okay, let's write, oh, it's wrong one. Let's write a negation. You should see this movie. You should not see this movie. Very nice. LaShonda is wearing blue. So there is another way that you can do a negation. And this actually comes down to where we cannot just do a simple thing like LaShonda is not wearing blue, right? You can say it is not true that LaShonda is wearing. So you can actually just put that in the front. It is not true that blah, 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 right? So then you can say it is not true that you should see this. I mean, it's pathetically horrible way of saying in English, right? But again, we're not in English class. Thank you for that because you guys would fail. I would be terrible at teaching you English. But you can, in math terms, right? We can just put that in the front. It's kind of that tilde, right? For the negation. So you're just saying it is not true that, and then the original statement after that. So just kind of a different way of saying it out. let's do 6 because this is kind of going into those, those qualifiers we had talked about, the all and the none and all of those. So, everyone should see this movie. How would you negate it? No, we did number 4. So the statements are the same, but the English statement is, because we're using those all or none kind of quality, because you're saying everyone now, right? Because that one said you should not, or you should see this movie. This one is saying everyone should see this movie. So how would you negate this? Very nice. So this is actually going back to what we had talked about last week. Right here. Negations for all or none. So the all is what the everyone would stand for, right? When they're saying everyone should see this movie, it's basically we're saying everybody or all the people should see this movie. So you can negate it by saying not all students, or in this case, not all people should see this movie, right? Or like you said, some people shouldn't see this movie. Is kind of how you would negate it. And then, of course, if you're talking about no student should read this book, its negation is a student should read this book or some students do read this book. So keeping that in mind, how would we negate that part B of number 6? Part B of number 6, Lashonda never wears blue. Okay, very good. Any other formation coming in mind, or that kind of sticks?
Doesn't usually for me.
I mean, and see, that's kind of where my English is getting lost, because doesn't usually, can that classify as sometimes? Yeah? Do we agree that not usually is similar to sometimes? Where's an English professor when you need it, right?
Then the other book.
Oh, too far.
Yeah.
Alrighty, guys, let's see. Ooh, I like number 8. Write a proposition that contains a triple negative. And we had seen an example of that. So how about I give you guys a minute at your table and let's see how many tables can come up with a triple negative sentence. I don't know, your time starts now. At the table, come on, people. I'm sure your table mates are not gonna bite you.
I just did that at the end. It was 3. Negative. Okay, stop.
30 seconds.
Is that what like our grandparents are saying?
Don't take the easy way out. I heard that. All right, 10 seconds, guys. It can be silly, right? It's just the idea of getting that concept of the triple negative. All right, anybody willing to share? Are we there yet?
We're not an English class, remember, so it's like, get a sound here.
Definitely.
Anybody ready to share? What? Remember we did the veto, the ban, the overthrow, and the whatever not. Find out the negative words that there are out there. See, there you go, yeah. Just, yeah, work with something like that. All right, who's sharing?
And the two not. Does not.
Table in the back left corner. You guys are so actively hiding your eyes from me. Middle table in the back? It can literally be something silly.
It just sounds a little weird.
Yeah.
Okay, give it to me.
We said, never should it not drive on the left side of the roads.
Never should it not.
Drive,
So where's the third negative? Never should it not would be two.
never should it and not.
Oh, shouldn't. Never, shouldn't, not. What are we talking about? Never, shouldn't, not, which those two negatives make it positive, and then the never makes it negative. So we're basically saying don't drive on the left side of the road.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I got there. That works. I mean, like I said, two negatives would make it positive, and then the one negative. So basically you're saying never drive on the left side of the road. The should and not are canceling each other out. Hey, good job. I like it. I will take it. Anybody else brave enough to share? Don't like hide from me. I can still see you. Like you're actively like averting your eyes. I still see you. Table on the, oh, okay, okay. You guys here? Brooks table, Samuel, Miguel, Savannah? I thought you guys were working on something.
The never should not just kind of.
Okay, we'll give them a second. You guys here? Again, it can be silly. Go ahead.
Should I say the one? Okay. So LaShonda does not never not wear blue.
Say that again.
LaShonda does not never not wear blue, or.
Okay, so you
she
kind of
said
wear
one
with
that
the
probably makes
never.
more sense. Oh.
Okay, so you do have the triple negatives in there, which you're kind of falling back on. She never wears blue, basically. Well, I'm giving her the she designation. I don't know. Aubrey, Lauren, Felicia, Emily, Emily. I will remember that. I promise you. You guys did the
we
left hand
did.
side. Jessica, Lori, Gio.
Joe Biden did not ban not dogs. I don't know.
What? You
We-
had
we
me
didn't
till
really
the
come up with
end. The knot is kind of not working in there.
I don't know.
All right, back table, Roberto, Brandon, Lily.
Nobody should not bring their dog into no movie theater.
Ooh. Nobody should not bring their dogs into no movie theater. I mean, really bad English. But again, we're not in English class, thank God. But yeah, there's three negatives in there, and you're basically saying don't take a dog to a movie. Why not? They would be hilarious in a movie theater. All right, table one here. I don't know if you're table one or table two, I'm just calling you one. Do we have something?
I said they canceled the job offer that he had declined.
They canceled the job offer. Canceled the job offer that he had declined. So where's the third one? Canceled and declined.
Cancel offers.
No, offer's not negative. So we need one more negative. Because the cancel would be a negative, right? Because they're saying, no, I don't want to do this job. The decline is same thing. Because they're like,
Didn't decline.
Right, he declined the fire.
oh, I like that, Raven. They canceled the job offer that he didn't decline. So the didn't decline would be two negatives, and then the cancel is, which I guess cancel is a negative word, is it?
It could work in this instance.
I think it does, because you're basically taking the offer back, right? You're saying we gave you the offer, but now we're taking it back. Okay, anybody else want to try?
The president overturned a ban on alcohol that he vetoed back in September.
Ooh, good English too. Very nice, very nice. But again, English was not the goal. Do not say this to any of your English professors, by the way.
That was one night. Yeah.
How? Vetoed, banned,
Ban,
what was your first one? Overturned?
overturn, president. What? That's four.
Samuel?
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's take a look at using decide, decide whether the or is exclusive or inclusive. So this is number 10, part A. We can keep driving on I-5 or get on I-405 at the next exit. Inclusive or exclusive? Exclusive, very good, because we cannot be on the two highways at the same time, right? Part B, you should save this document on your computer or a flash drive. Yeah, because you can save it in both places. Very nice. Alrighty. Well, they're doing it in a different setup, but I'm gonna skip that. Okay, let's do 14. Let's do part B. On the weekend, I like to hang out with friends. You're writing this in the if-then conditional statement. On the weekends, I like to hang out with friends. How would you put it in the if P, then Q?
Then I like.
I mean, you don't have to have the then, honestly, if, as long as you have the if in there, or, you know, just set it up in that, do this, and then this happens. So say that again for me, Raven.
If it's.
Okay, if it is a weekend, I like to hang out with friends. All right, very good. Anybody else want to try a different setup? We're okay? Yeah? And again, as you can see, if you wanted to practice, you know, we've got, and the reason I'm not doing the odd number ones is because there is an answer key for odd number ones. I don't know if you guys have seen that or not, but if you go all the way to the bottom, you'll see there's an answer key for odd number one. So I think that's a great way to practice if you wanted to. Okay, determine whether the compound statements are true or false. A horse is not a mammal. A horse is not a mammal. Is that statement true or false?
False.
False. This horse is not a mammal. No. Alrighty, if a horse is a mammal, then fish are mammals. Now, this is an if-then statement, so remember, those are the 4 cases you kind of have to look at.
Doesn't the last part have to be true?
Yeah,
Doesn't the last part have to be true?
if the conclusion is false, the whole statement.
Well, remember, there's the one where both can be false and the statement is still true.
I
So,
don't like this game.
which is the one situation in which a conditional statement is false?
If the proposition is true, but the outcome is false.
Very good. So, did you hear what Dominic said? If the proposition, the first part is true, but the second part is false, that's when the statement fails. All right, so keeping that in mind, if a horse is a mammal, then fish are mammals. So let's talk about P, if P, a horse is a mammal, is that part true? Yes, we did, because we established that in part A. So this little guy is true. Fish are mammals, is that true? So
Some fish are mammals. There's whales.
But that's a not a fish.
It depends how you count fish.
But that's not a fish.
I guess by fish, we're talking about fish? Fish. I don't know. I mean, you make a good argument. Whales are in the water too, swimming with the other fishes. But I think we're talking about fish. I don't know, salmon. That's just- So based on the fact that my if is true, then is false, what would we assign this guy? We just talked about this. Yeah, if the first part is true, but the conclusion is false, the entire statement is false. All right, very good. A triangle has 3 sides or 4 angles.
False.
Wait a second now, how is that different
Because
than the
one of
last
them has to
one?
be
Oh.
true. It's not both.
Because it's an or statement, yeah, so as long as one part is true, the entire statement is true. So yeah, we know a triangle has 3 sides, that part is true, 4 angles is false. But as long as one of them is true, the entire statement is true. Dominic, does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. The Eiffel Tower is in London and the Taj Mahal is in India. Why?
Because if there's an and. it's not.
There's an and, yeah, so with the and, both have to be true. So this guy is false. This guy is true, but since both of them are not true at the same time, the statement becomes false. Yeah? Perfect. Okay, let's do it again. Compound statement, true or false, converse, inverse. Let's do the equivalence, since we already wrote down how to write out each of those. 22. Identify which pairs of statements are logically equivalent. If you are not wearing shorts, then it is not hot outside. If you are not wearing shorts, then it is not hot outside. Okay. If you are wearing shorts, then it is hot outside. So, obviously the P and Q have to match, right? You couldn't really go with, well, we're talking about original statement, so that would be P implies Q, so that's the original conditional statement. Then your converse is where you switch the order. Inverse is the order is the same, but you negate both halves. And the contrapositive is switching the order and negate. Okay, so remember original and contrapositive are equivalent, and then converse and inverse are equivalent. So that's kind of what we're trying to identify, which is what and how they would be equivalent. So if you're not wearing shorts, then it is not hot outside. If you are wearing shorts, then it is hot outside. If it is not hot outside, then you are not wearing shorts. If it is hot outside, then you will wear shorts. So let's start by thinking about, what could potentially be the contrapositive with the original, what could be the converse with the inverse. So let's try and identify out of those four. So which one would you say, I don't know, pick number one, number one. Which one, what is that statement? Original, converse, inverse, contrapositive. What would you say for that first one? Inverse, so you're saying not P implies not Q? Okay, so if we're calling this guy the inverse, then this would be not P. This would be not Q. Okay, so that means we're assigning P as wearing shorts and assigning Q as being hot outside. Okay, so what would you say is the converse here then that goes with the inverse?
If it's not hot outside, or, I don't know, actually, I might.
Take your time, it's okay. 2. So remember, converse has to be where we bring Q in the front, P in the back, and there's no negations on converse. So there cannot be the knots in there, right? So which one would be the converse in this case? 4, yeah, because you're switching the order, the Q has to come in the front without the negation, so it is hot outside, then you will wear shorts will be the converse. So this guy is your Q, this guy is our P. So obviously then that means these two will be equivalent in value. So out of the 2 and 3 parts, which one would be the contrapositive and which one would be the original?
3 would be the contrapositive, 2 would be the original.
Because we are saying not Q, so it is not hot outside. Would be not Q, and then you are not wearing shorts would be the not P, yeah? All right. So that's your contrapositive. Sorry, guys, I'm using like my own made up symbols now. Which means part 2 becomes the original statement, right? What you started out with, which in this case would be if you are wearing shorts, that's the original P, then it is hot outside. So of course, that means these two guys would be equivalent in value. Yes? Yeah? Questions on this one? Have I like completely broken you down and lost you here, or are we doing okay? Hanging in there? Yeah? All right, wonderful. Let me save this guy. Okay, what time are we looking? 10:51? All right, guys, let's come back at 10:55 and we will work on the little Halloween puzzle thingy. Yeah? All right.
Right, really nice again. When I updated it, I lost all of my custom colors.
It's on anything, because everything changes.
My life is there.
It's like, and then they start trying to get it, has to be. It's not gonna buy that for $12. And they want to. But it's like. Start over.
For the whole year.
Yeah.
When you break down, there's a change.
Yeah, I don't not make myself just.
Actually, one time purchase, times 3, I have it all.
Yeah.
And now it's. Now I can sell out my money, so.
Wasn't there a system like this? I can't.
Can't like you can't even. Here's.
Have the options, no, if they give the option, it's
But now, sorry, like, how do you need internet?
All right, how are we?
It doesn't even have
People?
one. So it's just. No or see.
You're welcome to Apple, they see it, how we do, so they're like, okay, they don't really like this. Yeah, it's a different face.
Yeah.
So are you guys seeing like the sentence formations here? Because they are using like and or kind of sentences in there, right? All right, so table 1 was the first one that got the correct answer. You guys would like to share your answer with me, please? June 21st.
You said it was Jocelyn. And then with the cat and with costume.
Alrighty, very good.
Regarding 7, Damien. Was there a Corona and was in a zombie costume?
Alrighty.
And then
So,
September, the hamster costume. Was dog costume.
So, I'm designating them table 1 with Raven and Natty in them. So you guys use the logic that the witch should have the cat as its pet, right? So, and that kind of makes sense if you just think about the symbolism of Halloween, right? So that kind of tells me the dog should have been with the werewolf then.
Yeah.
Because that's where some of you were kind of still playing around, like, right, who should have the dog? And so that's why I was kind of giving you the hint, like, think about which animal should go with which costume. Now, obviously, piranha and zombies don't really have anything, but do they all eat brains? I don't
Eat
know.
flesh.
They got fish. That's clever. I guess zombies can eat flesh. I don't know. Haven't studied up on my zombies like me. And then I don't know what a hamster and a mummy has to do with that. So some of those could have kind of worked with that logic, right? And then there's so many different, like you can see kind of what I was doing here, putting the X's for what matches and then the tiny dashes for what does not match. So it's a process of elimination for some of these. I know Samuel had a complaint like, there's not enough background information in there. They're giving you enough information to kind of help you. So the reason why we did this activity is because next week you guys are going to be designing your own logic puzzle. I know. The atrocity of a math class. So start thinking in terms of this example, how you would come up with your own logic puzzle. Now you can get influences online, you can look at other examples, but the work has to be your own. So either Thursday or next week, we'll see when we can get to that. I haven't decided on that. I'll let you know.
Okay.
All right, everybody, have a wonderful day and I will see you on Thursday. Be careful. Please take cupcakes.
Oh. I have to explain a reason now.
It's actually not right.
It's